Welcome to the Auxano podcast, where we listen to our guests speak about their story and the seeds in their life that created their causes of change. My name is Bo DeSeo, the host of Auxano, and thank you for tuning in. This will be episode 1, so as awkward as it might be, thank you so much for listening in. Today, we are joined with the mind behind Shift Combat Sports, a house that has raised prominent up-and-coming fighters and some national champions. A former fighter that actively treads the road of martial arts, he devotes his life to coaching and training fighters. We are joined today by a Mr. Adam Mallehan. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. It means a lot to me that you are our first episode.
Pleasure to be here, Bo.
So one of the big things that I really wanted to ask you, especially when it comes to being a young entrepreneur yourself, is when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you were a kid? And now that you're no longer a kid, now that you're a man and you've honed your craft, obviously, what observations would you tell that young man?
I think part of being stricken with a fairly severe case of attention deficit is it's always been hard for me to think long term. I've always been a short term goals kind of person, and it really drove me to focus a lot on my creativity. And a lot of the goals that I set for myself, even when I was trying to think a little bit more long term, have always been around creative pursuits. There was a lot of art, a lot of music, and then martial.
Yeah. I remember there was a conversation that we were having previously that you believe that martial arts is art, that there is art in violence.
Absolutely.
Would you mind expanding on your viewpoint?
At a core level, martial arts is it is both martial and art. There's a system, there's a process, but it relies very heavily on inspiration and the expression of those martial techniques. So it will always be played differently from person to person, just the same way a guitar would be. It's capable of all the same sounds, but a person's going to follow the inspiration differently within those techniques. Creativity is kind of everything, and it that will inform your decision making process at every turn.
Yeah. I remember that there was a time where you were talking about how, because of the unique sound of an instrument and the way that you would hit the bag would also produce a unique sound, how has music actually helped cultivate your martial arts, especially in the way that you teach others?
Really, in two large degrees. Um, a lot of the pursuits that I have had in my life have been it never ends up being anything that you can win. There's no final version of it. You can't win music. You just learn a new aspect of it. You practice a technique. You get better at it. You explore it. And in the same regard, martial arts is there's always a new technique or a new variation or a new way to express it. Um, it's helped me view it as a really limitless art, which makes it fun for me because I get to just kind of be brand new at it forever.
Yeah.
The other thing, and this is a huge tenet of what I teach, is as with most things, there are patterns that can be recognized and therefore manipulated. I think that music is a pattern, obviously in its base form. Rhythms are obvious patterns, but I think a lot of things can be broken into patterns, and it's been a big pursuit of mine in martial arts to dissolve the chaos of fighting, and not allow myself what I consider a kind of a lazy scapegoat out, to just chalk things up to the chaos of fighting, to look deeper and try to find the systems and the processes and the patterns and the underlying framework for what we're doing, and teach from there, strategize from there, and I see a lot of correlation between music and in martial arts, especially as far as a performance goes. From being on stage for years doing that, the feeling that I get being on stage is the same feeling that I get after a martial arts performance.
Gotcha. Do you read a lot of books?
I don't know if a lot was fair, but yes.
Lately, I've been reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. I know that that's like the textbook case of
Yep.
like everybody saying like, "Oh, like I just read Atomic Habits," but the one thing that really sticks to me is we don't rise to the level of our words; we fall to the level of our systems, and I think it's super interesting because you've developed a system that other people can follow. Like it's not just something that you would wake up and be like, "Oh, hey, like I wake up at 5 a.m. and suddenly I'm a multimillionaire." You have created and cultivated like a system that an anime nerd to a another pro athlete would be
Yep.
able to follow. What were the roots in creating your system? Was it a lot of trial and error, or was it a lot of like known knowledge that from other coaches?
Uh, that's probably a bigger question than you even meant to ask. Uh, I think that I've largely suspected that I had a pretty severe propensity for um, being able to spot patterns. The reflex that people have where they see faces in clouds or those. I feel very strong in that regard. I can generally spot patterns uh, fairly quickly. Um, and it helps me learn things better once I can see those paths. And because it's very clear to me when I see them. I try to impart that for people that it may not be clear. I want to show them those little pathways that I've found, um, and it's been very helpful for me to set out on my mission. Part of the love of martial arts that I have is a desire to spread it. The things that it's been able to do for me in my life is uh, it's a high calling for me to provide an opportunity that it could maybe do that for somebody else as well. Um, Having some systems in place for helping other people learn, um, it gives them a path, so there's no ambiguity. It's not a nebulous process. There's very much an ABC to getting through something as wild as martial arts can be. Um, the more that I've learned about education, um, aside from martial arts, just uh, speaking with other teachers and learning from other coaches, especially through the early phases of learning, you don't learn the same way at the very beginning as you do once you kind of have your feet, your footing. You have a little bit of framework and a foundation underneath you. Uh, when you have context, you can refer to things from that context. Before you have that context, uh, one of the more useful things that you can do is actually just memorization. Uh, this is, I think, been a little bit overrun in academia, where a lot of scholastic pursuits uh, end up being nothing but memorization. But at a early stages of development, early stages of learning any new subject, memorization is actually the one of the more effective ways to teach someone. So having a baseline system where uh, all you really need to do, you don't need to understand the nuances of all the little things that comes in time, but having a framework that you can just memorize, you will actually excel quite a bit faster. Uh, our our striking system is based around a vocabulary, and having something like that you can fixate on to just memorize. You're not learning fighting. All you're learning is vocabulary. It's much more tangible for people. It's much more rewarding in its own way, even though it's not sexy to learn a bunch of vocabulary. Uh, you feel accomplished because starting something like this can feel very much like a brick wall, and having something that's a little bit more digestible and can make you feel like you're accomplishing something right out of the gate uh, through memorization, it kind of gets you on the hook a little bit more. It helps you do what I'm trying to do, which is get you to stick around and fall in love with martial arts.
Yeah. With that being said, where can people find you? Via social media, website, where can people find you at?
Well, first of all, my beautiful gyms in Newport News, Virginia, uh, come see me. I'd love to see you on the mats. All my social media is Shift Combat Sports. There's still some lingering stuff out there under Shift Combat Systems. That was what I called my program before I had my very own gym. But for the most part, it's Shift Combat Sports. We're on everywhere you have social media.
Why did you decide to switch from shift combat systems to sports? Did you just have like an ethereal moment where you're like, I want to choose this name instead?
No, not even a little bit. I My program has been around for several years, but we were operating out of other facilities in the area, and I didn't want to cause any political drama to being like a gym within a gym, and named Shift Combat Systems. I was aiming at, this is just a program. This is just a striking program that operates uh, in the context of a larger gym. I didn't want my identity to clash with anything. I wanted it to be part of it. I don't like the idea of that type of division inside of what's supposed to be a cohesive group. Um, but then once I branched out to do it on my own, uh, what I learned over years of being Shift Combat Systems, for whatever reason, uh, that that tickled the algorithm in a way where I got a lot of traffic from uh, the like tactical sports, the gun range stuff and survival skills and all that kind of stuff, which is cool, but it's not what we do. And making a more conscious shift towards combat sports was good, and it's a small switch from systems to sports. Keeps the same initials. I didn't really have to change the logos or anything, so it was a small step.
Okay. Well, to shift,
I see what you did there.
I wanted to ask, what were some of the sacrifices that you had to make in order to start shift combat sports?
Um, Another big question. Uh, Everything. Um, this is Starting a gym is a huge financial investment. That's oddly enough is the easy part. Um, this is Pursuing this is I came up in some gyms that, um, to put it diplomatically, uh, not the approach I would take for bringing up someone that you're hoping would stick with it and fall in love with martial arts. Um, so trying to elevate the standard for what I want and for how I think a gym should operate and how a gym culture should feel and how a fight team should navigate the fight world. How to bring new students into martial arts, all of those kind of things. Really trying to be exceptional at all of those different categories of running a gym. Um, I had to burn some bridges. I When you take a hard stance on saying this is how I think it should be done, you get some pushback because there's the old heads that say this is the way it's always been done, and how dare you think differently. But also, um, outwardly acknowledging that I don't agree with a lot of the things that I've seen and the ways that I've seen people treated, the ways that I see people training. And I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's only so many ways to punch and kick people, but trying to elevate what I see is an area of the country with a ton of potential. The East Coast doesn't get a ton of respect in the martial arts world, but we have some incredible talent here, and it deserves a better environment to be fostered and to compete on the level that the rest of the country is on, and inevitably the rest of the world. Um, so taking a fair bit of heat in a few regards with that kind of stuff. Um, and it's just a massive time commitment. This is Before I did this before I had a gym, before I was running my own program, this is all I wanted to do. This is I paid a lot of money to train all over the place and travel and gain knowledge and all that kind of stuff. It's I paid a lot of money to do this before I got paid to do this. So uh, it's not a mystery that this is a major time commitment for me. I'm if the gym's open, I'm here. I'm obsessed with this. It's all I want to do. I don't celebrate any holidays. I don't I don't do any of those things. I don't take vacations. This I'm all in on this. I have the coolest job in the world, so I don't want to do anything else. I am one of the very fortunate people that I've had my dream job since I was in my 20s. So uh, the least I can do out of respect for that opportunity is go all in. I've at the early stages when you have a part-time job at the same time, I've lost a couple of jobs because it got in the way of this. I've had a couple of relationships burn out because it was just so much of this and everything was gym first. Um, and that's in the pursuit of greatness. We all hear this stuff about greatness requires sacrifice, but you don't often hear what that sacrifice is. It's just kind of left as this nebulous cliche, and that's really what it is. It's constant little sacrifices. I'm gonna miss birthdays. I'm gonna miss anniversaries. I these are the things that I am willing to let go of to pursue greatness. I think that martial arts deserves that, at least from me, for what it's given me. Uh, it deserves some sacrifice from me to give back.
You embody, it's a quote I read. It was, if you don't sacrifice for what you want becomes a sacrifice. And it's super refreshing that a man of your caliber is able to live that and personify that from the people that you train. Because I know that there's a lot of people that probably come in and they expect to see you because you are like the face of Shift. But although you coach, eventually your brand would take off, and like you're going to have champions and the prominent up and coming fighters that are who they are under your tutelage. It's just a matter of time. And I think that there is victory in being able to sacrifice now for your future later. And if you could actually give advice to somebody who is trying to become any entrepreneur, whether it's through fitness or whether it's through, I don't know, like drop shipping or something, but what advice would you give to other entrepreneurs who are doing just exactly what you're doing?
Uh, it's always super cliche because anytime people are looking into this kind of thing, any kind of entrepreneurship, they run into the same cliches, and it's not just a way to get people off your back and just it really rings true. You got to surround yourself with people that are doing better than you. I have some unbelievably amazing mentors. Um, Coach Kirian was one of my first like really high level coaching mentors for running a fight team and how to program fighters and run classes and the actual coaching side of things. He runs a gym with I don't know 50 plus world champions. Uh, I think at its height was like 1,400 members in his gym. I mean, just killing it. Um, and he opened his doors to me to show me how he did what he did. Just a tremendous resource there. Um, and then for the last 2 years or so, I've been working with a couple of guys out of Philadelphia. They run a gym called Dragon Gym, which is in Philadelphia. It's a very very old gym that they actually took over from their instructor, uh, and they have become wildly successful on the business side through martial arts. So they're not in the business to create world champions in that sense, but they are doing exceptionally well, growing their gym and spreading martial arts, which is a different type of goal that I also appreciate. And they run a group called the Muay Thai Advisory Group that I got involved with a couple of years ago, and um, Lonnie and Sam are just absolute brilliant minds in terms of there's a lot of masterminding groups for different industries, and they're just so finely tuned for martial arts gyms. Um, there's a lot of mastermind groups, and some of them are kind of generic business ownery stuff. But they're tuned into specifically the martial arts world, which is very, very cool. And I honestly attribute a lot of the success that we've had over the last year and the growth that we've had over the last year to the guidance that I've had from them. Um, so first and foremost, surround yourself with people that are doing better than you in whatever your industry is. Um, the other thing, and this is something I've just kind of recently come back around to, I'm reading a book called Bounce. That's it's a book more or less in observation of a very robust study done on what it takes to be elite, to really pursue excellence, and the study was done uh, regardless of industry. They studied everything from athletes to chess players to CEOs to uh, anybody who would be considered excelling, um, and studied their lives, studied their childhood, studied their upbringing, studied their uh, academic pursuits. I mean, just everything that you could bring into the picture to figure out how people become successful. And the only thing that seemed to have any level of consistency across the board was time spent. This is where the 10,000 hours concept came from, or 10 years, sometimes you'll hear. Um, is that was the only thing that uh, Mozart or Andre Agassi or uh, what's the name of the guy that took on Deep Blue, the chess player? Uh, yeah,
I don't know.
master any of the master chess players is that's been the single separator is time spent. And the premise of the book is that talent is an illusion, and it's not that it doesn't have a factor. It's not like being 6'5" isn't helpful if you're trying to make it into the NBA, but it's saying that there is no substitute for practice and time spent and the pursuit of actual mastery of your thing. And I taking that piece of knowledge and combing through what my experience in martial arts has been, I reference two of my fighters and actually coaches now, Peachy and John. When they came to me probably 6 years ago now, um, I mean, could not have been less athletic, no experience, not in shape. I mean, just it's not the ideal person that you have walk through your door as in a athletic pursuit. Uh, and they they put in about a year's worth of work in their first 4 months. And me, I have a pretty high standard for what I want from people before I'll let them compete with my name on them. Um, and they were both in the ring in 4 months. And that was most certainly not because of their talent. It was not because of their genetic gifts. It wasn't because of any of those things. They just put in the hours and they did fantastic. They went out and they put in a year's worth of work in 4 months. They were training 6 days a week, 4 hours a day. I mean, I'm not saying do that. That's not healthy for a lot of people. Uh, but work-life balance is a real thing. But there is a reason that they got to the ability level that they got to as fast as they did, and it wasn't because of their natural talent or genetic gifts or anything like that. It was uh, they buckled down and went after their pursuit of mastery and put in a lot of hours real quick. That's kind of how I started. I I'm not an athletic person. Kind of a strange one to have pursued athletics as a career. Um, but I was obsessive when I started. I was when I started jujitsu, I was doing 3 a days. I would train the early AM class before work. I'd go train again on my lunch break, and then I'd train all night. And to go back to what you said about sacrifices, that was absolutely a time that cost me jobs, cost me relationships. But I was obsessed with this thing, and I was pursuing mastery. And uh, I'm not going to say I mastered anything in a couple of years, but I did get pretty good pretty fast. And it wasn't because of any natural ability or anything. I put in a lot of hours and was very focused with what I was doing. I think I probably would have made it a little bit further, and if I was at a better establishment. But I'm still grateful for what it was, and for better or worse, it still got me on the hook, and I probably wouldn't have kept pursuing martial arts if it wasn't for that. So
Yeah. But I think that your path has led you to meet some very interesting people. Like, I know that you actually talk often with Shane Faison.
Mhm.
Shane Faison is a pretty prominent figure in the YouTube fighting space. How did that relationship even start?
I actually met him in California when I was going to train at CSA with Coach K. Um, he was there, kind of doing the same thing, and there's famous fighters and there's all kinds of stuff, but that's a personality that stands out in a crowd. Uh, but only because of who he is, not because of how he is. Uh, Shane is very soft spoken, very quiet. Not probably the personality that you would expect for someone that's as prominent of a figure, especially in a media sense. Um, but just true mastery over his purpose and his aim in and his spot in the industry. He gets a lot of flack for just being a YouTube guy, and I he's my buddy, and I feel the need to stick up for him sometimes because he gets a ton of flack about he doesn't actually know how to fight and all these things, and I'm like, I've trained with him
Yeah.
several times.
I've seen some of his pro fights.
Yeah, he doesn't talk about his experience.
Yeah.
He's fought in Thailand. He's done some boxing matches. Like he actually fought, and he's quite good. And even without the in-ring experience, I've trained with him. I've sparred him several times. He's very good. He's very good. Uh, but it was cool. Yeah, I'm sure he has a wealth of people that are hoping to get his attention and whatever. But him and I resonated with, I think, just being kind of younger coaches in the industry and being pretty open-minded about what that needs to mean. He gets a lot of pushback being young. What could you possibly know? Why do you feel like you could teach anybody? And that's definitely a pain that I've felt for a while. Which I have a chip on my shoulder, probably a little bit about it, but I try to take it in stride. And um, I want to be. I want this process and this what we do to just be so consistently successful that it's undeniable, and I don't have to argue for myself. I don't have to justify what I'm doing. It's just so obvious that what we're doing is working
Yeah.
that no one can say anything.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, where can people find you now that you're talking about the art and the system that you have? Like, what's your address? Like, where are you at?
Our gym is 610 Thimble Shoals in Newport News, Virginia. We are kind of tucked behind the fire department. Got a nice big parking lot back here. We send people outside to work out all the time. Thimble Shoals is a pretty major street in Newport News, so if you come to the area, you'll definitely hit Newport. You'll hit Thimble Shoals. So we're tucked away a little bit, but it's a beautiful little spot. We'll be here bursting at the seams for another year or two, and then onto greener pastures.
Entrepreneur Pastors. Well, I did want to introduce to a I did want to introduce like a speed round of just like general questions, especially
Right.
since like I suppose I probe like the deeper questions. Maybe that's just my personality. But dessert or Food.
Food, no question.
Food.
Yeah,
Are you the type of person that would just order more food over dessert?
usually. There's very few desserts that get me excited enough to not just want more food.
Okay. Do you watch sports at all?
I less and less through the years. It's overstimulation. Like once you've watched as much fighting as I have watched, everything else just kind of seems boring.
Is combat sports like the thing? Like combat sport is the sports for you?
Yeah, it's if somebody's not getting hit, it's just kind of boring.
Nothing wrong with
It's
that.
my own fault. I used to watch, baseball, basketball, football, but they just team sports especially just don't excite me anymore.
I gotcha. If we're talking about like cars, what type like are you a car person at all?
Not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit.
Oh, I drive a minivan.
Yeah, and your minivan is awesome. Your minivan is awesome. Eventually, would we be able to meet Knock?
Yeah, yeah. Knock is my best friend in the whole world. My 150-pound Great Dane. Yeah, love that guy.
When did you get him? Did you adopt him or did
I've
you?
had him since he was a puppy.
Wow.
A buddy of mine is a breeder, and he had a litter of puppies right around the time I decided I was looking for a dog. And I love big dogs. I think they have the best personalities, and they don't get a whole lot bigger than a Great Dane. So the everything, all the stars aligned, and actually got two.
You have two?
Yes, well, did. It was. I went to get Knock. That was the agreement. I was there to get Knock, and when I went there, he told me that a few people had backed out on getting their dog that day. And if you know anything about breeding dogs, there's a certain point where you kind of need to separate the mother from the puppies, otherwise they bond, and it can cause behavioral stuff and then health stuff later on. He's like, I really need to get rid of these dogs. Do you want another one? And I was like, man, these are expensive dogs. I don't know. I wasn't really prepared for this. And he was like, no, I will basically give you another one. So I didn't let him give it to me. I paid him for it. But since it was such a favor to me, I let him pick which one. And he was like, it would really help me to get the alpha out of the litter. It turned out the alpha was a female.
Oh.
So I ended up with Knock and then a female that was the alpha of the whole litter.
Okay.
So she's the neurotic one. Very high energy. Got to go through the door first. Can't pet him without petting her. Yeah, she's a bunch of energy.
Would I be able to get the origin story of why you named your dog Knock?
We were going through a bunch of names, and most of them were funny names. He was dangerously close to being named Chonk.
When he was chonky?
When he was a puppy, he had just a big distended puppy belly.
Oh my god.
It was so adorable.
Yeah.
As he grew, it kind of went away and his legs got a lot longer and it wasn't as pronounced. But man, it just made me laugh every time I said it. So I wanted to keep saying it. But Knock is, I experimented with the idea of wanting to borrow a term from my industry. And a Muay Thai fighter is called a Knock Muay. So Knock sounded like a decent, short, one-syllable name for a pet. So that's what I went with.
Team mascot.
Yeah, team mascot.
Team mascot.
There's pictures on my Instagram of him wearing the shift colors.
That's where the audience definitely will be able to find you. And the team mascot Knock, because that is important, for sure.
He's at the gym a lot, so you'll see him in a lot of the pictures and videos.
Yeah. It would be motivation for people to come by, especially for Knock. Unfortunately, I feel like we've reached the time to where we have reached the closing time. So, what are your closing thoughts? Do you have anything that you wanted to let me know? Any questions that you had for me?
This has been a really fun journey. We've been working together on the mats and off the mats for quite a few years now. It's been really fun to have you document our growth and at the same time watch you smash some of your goals.
Thanks.
Your time management is always really impressive. because you have so many different projects, and you're doing the real estate thing, and you got your
Yeah.
pursuing the podcast stuff. It's just awesome. You're a killer photographer. You
Thanks.
you never miss your workouts, even if they're not here with me. I always see your Instagram where you're hitting the bag and lifting weights. So it's been fun watching you grow. And it's always a humbling to have you helping us grow.
It means a lot, Coach. But before we close, actually, your last workout, I looked at it. I haven't attempted it yet, but I looked at it, and it was it was like 150 thrusters, I think, with like a 95-pound barbell,
Yeah.
95 pounds total. But if you drop it, the amount of like cardio that is involved with just dropping the barbell to rest, I think was like 25 calories on the assault bike.
I think it was 30 for men, 21 for women.
And everybody knows that the assault bike is killer. Like that is not an easy beast to
Yep.
overcome.
Yeah. Our workouts are no joke. There's cardio's the system that supports everything in martial arts. Your technique doesn't matter if you don't have the cardio support it. So we take our fitness very, very seriously. And from on a competitive side, I put our gym's fitness and cardio up against literally anybody. We work super hard for that. We have never gassed in a fight ever. We pretty much always dictate the pace in the fights, and we use our cardio as a weapon. And I will bet my house on just about every fighter I have being able to burn hotter and brighter than anybody they're going in there against. That's a point of pride for us, for sure.
100%. And hey, that would definitely be all the more reason why people should tune in to Shift Combat Sports and who you are and who your fighters are. But thank you so much again for being a guest on the Auxano podcast. It means a lot that you gave us our first yes.
It's my pleasure.
And we hope to see you again.
We will, for sure.